Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Week 13 is here, and I've got my running back rankings, my top 24, my RB1s, and my RB2s for your fantasy football week 13 start sit questions. If you have 3 or 4 running backs that you have a question of, which 2 should I start on my roster? Pick the 2 that I have ranked higher. Hopefully you have 2 of the guys on this list as we make the push towards the playoffs, and hopefully we can help get you there. If these videos have helped you throughout the year, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell, because we're going to have tons of videos all the way through the playoffs and all the way through next offseason to get you ready for your 2023 fantasy football draft. So I appreciate all the love this year, and let's go.
He's a legend.
Make sure that you join the Smiz Gang Listener League for Week 13 over on DraftKings. Go to smizzle.tv/links. It's the only way to find the link to the Listener League because it's not a lobby game. $10 to enter, 3 max, $35,000 in the player pool, and there is absolutely no rake. Reserve your seats today. You can go to rewards. You can click missions and then get less than 0 rake by doing a mission for each entry if you enter them 3 days in a row. And get your seats early because at 3,500 entrants, this one could fill a little bit early. So make sure you jump in there today. Go to the link tree, smizzle.tv/links, and join the league today. Not really surprisingly, Austin Ekeler is in that #1 spot for me this week. He's been tremendous all season long, continues to rack up catches, 12 touchdowns on the year, 23.6 fantasy points per game. He has been amazing, has 80 catches so far this season. Well on pace to break the single season receptions record set in 2019 by Christian McCaffrey after an 11 reception performance in week 12. Doesn't have to do anything else. I said he has 80 receptions. Ramondre Stevenson is the #2 in the league in terms of running back receptions. He has 50. Then there's a bunch of guys in the 40s. Like Austin Ekeler has almost lapped the field. And in full PPR, it does make a ton of difference. It's why we always say targets, especially at running back. Now, somebody who doesn't get a lot of targets is Nick Chubb, but he does have a fantastic matchup and an improvement at quarterback, at least in terms of quarterback talent. This offense should start humming for the rest of the season. Now, while the narrative street dwellers want to believe that this is going to be a 4 or 5 touchdown game in Deshaun Watson's first game back, and all of the revenge against the Houston Texans, Nick Chubb is a high volume running back with big playability, who when you let him get into the second level tends to crush, and no team does that more, or allows that more than the Houston Texans. They play from behind a ton. They allow a mountain of carries to opposing running backs, coming off of a 26 carry game for 116 yards against the Buccaneers where he went for a touchdown. He has some involvement in the pass game, so at least it's not a 0. He has 12 touchdowns on the year. This should be a high floor game for Nick Chubb, which is why I have him ranked ahead of some other pass catching backs. I'm being very aggressive with Nick Chubb this week because I believe the ceiling possibility is here for like a 200-yard, 2-3 touchdown game from Nick Chubb in this specific spot, with Deshaun Watson being under center and more threat in the passing game, more of a chance that he runs against a higher percentage of light boxes moving forward for the rest of the year. And this particular matchup, it doesn't get much better at running back. So Nick Chubb on track for a really high floor, supremely high ceiling game, very much a favorite to score a touchdown. He has 5 of them in the last 5 games leading into this tremendous game. And those came against teams like Tampa Bay, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Baltimore. Not easy teams to run the football against. He has been tremendous this year, and I've had him ranked lower because on a fantasy points per game aspect in PPR, it's hard for him to get there. This is a high floor, high ceiling spot for Nick Chubb. Behind him, now this is going to be the biggest point of contention, but I have to rank Josh Jacobs in this spot, averaging 23.4 fantasy points per game, coming off of a walk-off 51.3 fantasy point performance, 22 fantasy points the week before, 22.6 the week before that. He's been amazing. And like, if you're winning your league, you probably drafted Josh Jacobs somewhere around like the 6th, 7th round in your drafts, right at the end of that running back dead zone, getting a ton of targets, catching a whole lot of, I think he's like 3rd or 4th in the league in terms of like receptions right now. He's got 40, or he's in that top 5. He's got like 40 receptions so far this year on 48 targets. But, and there is a big but here, and it doesn't belong to Josh. It's a big but, B-U-T, not B-U-T-T. He's not going to practice. Last Friday, he suddenly showed up on the injury report with a injured calf. Well, as I've said many times in the past, they have some fantastic drugs at the NFL level that make these guys feel no pain for 4 or 5 hours. And as long as it's not a structural injury, if it's like muscular, then they can play through something as long as they do all that pregame testing. You hear, oh, he's coming out for pregame warmups. He's going to test it out. Meaning like they shot him up and they're going to see if he can like cut and move and be explosive. He could do it last weekend, but may have aggravated. I don't know. He had like 74 opportunities last week. Carried the ball like 33 times, had like 8 more targets. Ridiculous. So they put that on a guy with a bad calf. And now he is scheduled to not practice per a tweet this morning from one of the Raiders beat writers. Not going to practice Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, and hopes to be able to play on Sunday. So they're going to do all the treatment in the world. He's a veteran. He doesn't really need to practice. He knows the playbook. He knows what he's supposed to do. And then if he can play, he'll play. If not, we'll move him off of this list, and Zamir White or Abdullah will enter way lower on the list in this great matchup against the Los Angeles Chargers. Christian McCaffrey comes in at 4. He has had tremendous usage in the passing game since coming over. 9 targets, 6 targets, 7 targets, 6 targets. They have not really given him the volume on the ground. He has seen a lot of inside the 5 carries, and he's buoyed by the fact that Elijah Mitchell is now going to miss the rest of the season. I believe that the rookie Mason will take over that job. We'll see if that cuts into Christian McCaffrey's workload. I'm assuming McCaffrey will see over 20 opportunities in every game moving forward as the 49ers make that playoff push. But if they keep him in that 15 touch per game role, or sorry, 15 carry per game range, it's a little bit tougher, especially with all the weapons, the other 3 major offensive weapons in Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle, muting his touchdown expectancy, right? He's got lower touchdown expectancy because of all the other weapons around him, even though it's a much better offense because they have better weapons. So he's splitting with a lot of people. Derrick Henry comes in at number 5 off of a horrible game for him. So 38 yards on 17 carries. He has averaged 3.1 yards per carry or less each of the last 3 games against Cincinnati, Green Bay, Denver. He now gets Philadelphia, who have tried to shore up their inefficiency at stopping the run, but they have been very exploitable by opposing running backs this season. And they're finally throwing screen passes to Derrick Henry, which you love to see because he gets to rumble for like a very nice 69 yards before fumbling and you know, Burks recovering a touchdown in that game. But if they throw 2-3 screen passes per game to Derrick Henry, it is very, very, very hard to defense him, especially when those screenplays come off of play action. Now they're just in a world of hurt because they run great play action on Tennessee. Not because Derrick Henry runs the ball, but because they're good at play action, and Tannehill's a very good play action quarterback. But like getting him involved in the pass game at all is a major boon to us fantasy managers in PPR leagues, and that's what I rank for. So big playability from Derrick Henry as always, both on the ground or on a screenplay, and an exploitable. Philly is a top-notch defense, but the one place you can exploit them is on the ground. They've tried to bring in Ndamukong Suh and signed other players, but since their rookie defensive tackle got hurt, they've been a lot softer against the run. We'll see if they can shore it up this week, but Derrick Henry is not really the guy you want to try and test out things. Saquon Barkley squares off at home against Washington. He comes in here at number 6. He's been solid. Nothing really thrilling recently from him. 19.3 fantasy points per game on the year, 15.2 last week. Against Detroit, he put up a very disappointing 5.5 on Thanksgiving Day. 26 against Houston, 35 carries for 152. He's been nice. 7 touchdowns on the year. He's more than paid off his draft capital that we spent for him in the summer, but not like the consistent, really big games from him. And mostly because it's just, there's no wide receivers in this offense to move the field. So he's running against so many heavy boxes, and their coaching staff has done such a good job at scheming him into the play and keeping him fantasy relevant for us based on his talent and ability and being the center point of that offense. He stays here at number 6. At number 7, Ramondre Stevenson. Oh boy, do I remember taking a whole lot of heat this summer when I said Ramondre Stevenson was the better back and was going to take this job from Damian Harris. He did take the job from Damian Harris. Now Damian Harris might miss a few games, and we've seen what's happened in the games that he's played with Damian Harris. He has not scored any less than 14.2 fantasy points since week 5 and beyond. He's been over 20 fantasy points, 6 of the last 8 games, something like that. And over the last 5 or 6 games, 20% of the target market share. Such a tremendous floor. Now he takes over all of the inside the 5 carries with Damian Harris out, has an expectation of 15 to 20 carries on the ground, 6+ targets. He's gotten 10 targets in week 12, 6 in week 11, 7, 7, 8, 5, like exactly the usage that we want out of a running back. He has taken over as the high floor, high ceiling guy on a week to week basis from Alvin Kamara, who has the same skill set and usage, but based on the way that they're running the offense in New Orleans with way too much Taysom Hill. I have Stevenson ranked here at 7. We'll see where I have Alvin Kamara as we move down the ranking list. At number 8, Jonathan Taylor. Now look, Indy's bad. I get that. They're not great, but I love the usage since Jeff Saturday took over. I don't like the clock management from Jeff Saturday, but this is not a clock management ranking video. Like he'd rank like last. Like he challenging like Andy Reid at this point for really bad clock management. Can we get like the coaches in the league to play like a minimum of 200 to 500 games of Madden every offseason? We've seen, like, people are going to joke, oh, you think NFL coaches should play video games? No, I really do. I think it would improve their end of half and end of game clock management and timeout usage. Not unlike professional racers, F1 racers, NASCAR racers, who use video games and simulators to try and get better when they're off the track. It's kind of the same thing. More reps is never a bad thing. I digress. Jonathan Taylor, since he has taken over the job, Saturday took over the job, 20, 22, 22 carries, a touchdown on the ground in each of those games. Massive route participation. He ran like 30 something routes on Monday Night Football against Pittsburgh. Only got 4 targets, but 4, 4, and 2 targets in those games. He is the one main piece of this offense right now. Now, he has a scary defense against him, but like volume over everything. So he's going to stay here at 8. Behind him at 9 is Ken Walker the third. Same situation. A lot of volume. In theory, not a great matchup against the Rams defense in Los Angeles, but Seattle is favored in this game, and the Rams have been kind of subjected. They're 3-8. They're starting to shut down players, or at least consider it. They may shut down Aaron Donald, which vastly changes the defensive outlook for this defensive line. He is clearly the anchor. They might shut down Stafford. Allen Robinson out for the year. Kupp already hurt for a while. This is basically a preseason second half roster that the Rams are running out, and Ken Walker the third is a better player than the defensive players that should theoretically be lining up against him. This is a great bounce back spot for him in terms of his running efficiency, which has really struggled the last 2 weeks, averaging under 2 yards per carry. I'm going to take the over on 2 yards per carry here in week 13. Ken Walker solid at number 9. At number 10, I have Walker ahead of Dalvin Cook right now. Dalvin Cook also going to get a ton of volume, faces off against a much tougher defense. So the matchup was what was different for me, which keeps Cook behind Ken Walker. Before my first glance, I was like, okay, I'm going to have Dalvin Cook at like 8. I don't know why Siri did that to me. I was going to have Dalvin Cook at like 8. And then I saw Jonathan Taylor's last 3 game usage when I took a little bit of a deeper dive, and Ken Walker's matchup against the Rams, and I kind of shifted things a little bit. Dalvin Cook has a tough matchup against the Jets, but in a tough matchup against New England, he still saw 27 opportunities, 20 carries, 5 targets on Thanksgiving Day. He didn't do much with them, only 9.6 fantasy points in that game, but averaging 15.7 on the season. And he's ahead of Aaron Jones at number 11. Great matchup against Chicago, but inconsistent usage. The last 2 games, 12 carries in each of the last 2, 4 targets and 7 targets. 24 carries against Dallas, 20 carries in week 8 against Buffalo. Like, can you stop yo-yoing him all over the place? Can we just get 20 opportunities every single game for Aaron Jones? Because that would be great. Because, like, I have him at 11 on talent and matchup. He's done well the last 2 games with the 16 opportunities and 19 opportunities, scoring 18.9 fantasy points and 14 fantasy points in PPR. But, like, I want that 20 opportunities every single week, 15 carries, 5 targets, lock it in, and then spell him and work that in with A.J. Dillon, because that's what you're going to have to do, especially if Aaron Rodgers is out and Jordan Love is under center. They're certainly going to use these running backs, and Chicago, one of the worst defenses in the league in total, and a great streaming option for us all season long at running back. Alvin Kamara, the aforementioned Alvin Kamara, comes in here at number 12, finishing off our top 12. I hate the Saints. I don't understand anything that the Saints are doing. Under 10 fantasy points in PP freaking R for Alvin Kamara 3 of the last 4 weeks. 9, 12.9, 7.5, 9.2. No touchdowns in the last 4 weeks. Very few opportunities. 14 opportunities against San Francisco. Understandable. One of the best defenses in the league. Against the Rams, 17 opportunities. That was the one he had 12.9. Pittsburgh. 12 opportunities against Pittsburgh. Against Baltimore, a game that they lost as well. 13 opportunities. Alvin Kamara is supposed to be a game flow independent running back. Meaning if you're winning, it's probably because Alvin Kamara did some awesome Alvin Kamara things. If you're losing, it means that Alvin Kamara gets a chance of getting 10 targets in those games. They just really like Taysom Hill's package way too much in New Orleans, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I also don't understand why they don't have or why they keep starting Andy Dalton. It's like Andy Dalton has done nothing to help this offense move or be more efficient. So like throw Jameis in there. What's the worst that can happen? You score more points? Stop putting Taysom Hill in the game. What could happen? You score more points? Get the ball to Alvin Kamara 20 plus opportunity times per game and watch your offense suddenly get a lot better because you've lost Michael Thomas and you've had an injury prone Jarvis Landry all season, and you don't have the offensive weapons to make it work. You do have one amazing offensive weapon and they're refusing to use him. Please free Alvin Kamara. At number 13, we are going to get a heavy dose of David Montgomery. Khalil Herbert out for the year. 14 carries, 17 carries the last 2 weeks. 4 targets in each of those games. A big uptick from what he had been seeing previously, where his usage in the passing game was spotty. He's playing all of the snaps, getting all of the touches. 14.3 fantasy points in week 12. Against the Jets on the road against Atlanta, 21.1 fantasy points, only averaging 11.2 on the season. That's going to tick up. He's going to be a 15-16 fantasy point a game guy the rest of the year. At 14, the league leader in touchdowns, Jamal Williams, no usage in the passing game each of the last 4 weeks. 0 receptions on 0 targets. The Blutarski. You hate the 0.0. It's bad, right? We need more usage in the passing game, but he's leading the league in terms of inside the 5 carries and leading the league in terms of touchdowns on the ground with 13 touchdowns so far this year, getting 15 to 24 carries a game in the last 4 games. So ample enough usage to keep him up in this spot, but is very, very, very much touchdown reliant, although they are at home and favored against the Jacksonville Jaguars team that is bad on defense. They are going to get opportunities in the red zone and likely inside the 5. And when they get in there, that's Jamal's job. They've effectively turned Jamal Williams into LeGarrette Blount circa 2015. Like, I kind of hate it, but like, I like it. My best ball teams like it. Tony Pollard is extremely difficult to rank, and so is Ezekiel Elliott. I have Pollard ahead of him, but at 15. I want one of them to take over the job, and they don't. And Pollard has been the better running back. We've been saying this for 2-3 years, but I've been the advocate that we have to play who they play more, and until right now, that's been Ezekiel Elliott. Pollard outsnapped Ezekiel Elliott on Thanksgiving Day 55 to 45. So it's basically going to be split down the middle. And the problem is Ezekiel Elliott's probably going to get all of the inside the 5 carries. So we need Pollard to score from deep, which he can do, right? He scoots. He can get out there and get, but like it's tough to have to rely on that without those easy layup touchdowns inside the 5-yard line. He has been better than Ezekiel Elliott at literally everything. But Jerry wrote those big checks and he is not going to back down off of it and is holding Pollard out of the top 12 where he should be if he got the volume. And right now he's not getting the volume. Monitor Jeff Wilson Jr.'s injury. He should be the only guy there. He left the last game but came back to it. He has a tough matchup against San Francisco this week, but I can't rank him any lower just based on the volume and what I expect from both offenses in that game. It's going to be tough sledding up front, but that could mean 4, 5, 6 targets this game for Jeff Wilson. They can't always just target the wide receivers against a defense as tough as San Francisco. So elevated targets and no challenge for inside the 5 carries for Jeff Wilson Jr. Behind him, Rachaad White, another, like I said, I record this video on Tuesday, and that leads to injury situations not always being settled. On Monday night, Leonard Fournette, I'm assuming, is out. If he's out, we saw what Rachaad White's role is. He played like 90+% of the snaps, got 95% of the running back touches, 14 carries, 9 targets, caught all 9 of them. We knew that he was going to be a tremendous pass catching back, and Tom Brady has to check down a lot, and he may have to check down more on Monday night if Marshawn Lattimore comes back in that game and is like the kryptonite to Mike Evans' Superman, right? Like this has just been proven. Wide receiver cornerback matchups, I weight them, but like I don't overweight them. But there's some guys that just dominate other guys. Styles make fights, sort of thing. And like it literally made a fight the last time these two guys played, and it led to Mike Evans' suspension. So we have this situation where Rachaad White could get another 6 to 10 targets in this game. If Fournette is still out again in week 13, monitor it as the week goes on. Right now I have him at 17. If Leonard Fournette comes back, he'll fall all the way out of the top 24. Ezekiel Elliott comes in at 15 because of touchdown upside and the contract that he signed, and Jerry Jones not being able to say, you know what, this other kid's better and we should probably play him. So he's going to get 10 to 15 opportunities. He's going to get however many inside the 5. Let's say they get 4 or 5 offensive snaps inside the 5-yard line. It's got to be like a 3-to-1 in terms of if they are rush attempts that they would go to Ezekiel Elliott over Pollard. So you're banking on touchdowns and upside in a game where the Cowboys are one of the best offenses in the league, operating in this situation at home against the Colts team on a island game where the Colts are just terrible in all facets of the game at this point. Ezekiel Elliott could end with like 60 yards, but 2 touchdowns and like one catch. That's enough to keep him in this spot. Travis Etienne stays down at 19 because of the injury that he suffered, and we don't exactly know how well he is going to be for this game this week. He's not in a walking boot. He's not on crutches, so they assume he's going to be fine for this one. But like all year I've been saying, just throw the ball to Travis Etienne, right? That's what we want. Throw the ball to Travis Etienne. That's what we're looking for. He's a great pass catching back in college. That was his profile coming out. You had him as your pass catching back early in the season. He leaves this game with a foot injury. Thankfully, it wasn't a bad one. And then Hasty gets 5 catches. Frustrating. If they throw the ball to Travis Etienne and Travis Etienne is healthy, then we're fine. He's dealing with a sprained foot. We'll see how that goes. Later in the week, I may move him up ahead of like Jeff Wilson Jr. I'd probably still have him behind Jamal Williams and Tony Pollard, if that helps you out. So that's kind of where I'd rank him. Isaiah Pacheco has stepped into a tremendous role. The Andy Reid running back role has always been something that has been spectacular. That's what, we've been always drafting Andy Reid running backs because Andy Reid running backs turn into great fantasy backs. He has wrestled this job away from literally everybody else. I know they signed Melvin Gordon to the practice squad. It doesn't matter. I think that he's just, it's a distraction. He's insurance at this point. Isaiah Pacheco saw 5 inside the 5 carries this week. He scored a touchdown, 22 carries overall against what was still a tough Rams defense last week. It's going to project to get worse as the weeks go on and they start shutting people down. 15.6 PPR points, 13.7 PPR points, but he only got 1 point per reception because he had 1 reception in those 2 games. They have not utilized him in the passing game at all, which is a little shocking. I mean, he's not playing all of the snaps, but when he's in there, he's getting all of the touch. He's playing like 55% of the snaps. They bring in Jet McKinnon to handle all the pass game work as he is a better passing down back than Pacheco, but doesn't mean Pacheco can't help you in the passing game. Right now, he is a touchdown reliant running back, but in a game that looks very probable to shoot out, I believe they are one of the highest, if not the highest. They're tied for the highest team total on the slate with the Lions at this point. So Isaiah Pacheco, a very talented running back, an explosive running back in a very explosive offense that does make a ton of trips inside the red zone and goal to go situations. So massive touchdown upside for him every single week. Miles Sanders, same situation, but I have to rank him a little bit behind Pacheco because it's a 3-headed monster and Pacheco's not really dealing with all those other heads. He's just the guy when they get inside the 5-yard line, as opposed to Miles Sanders, who's having a tremendous year with 8 touchdowns, having to deal with Boston Scott, having to deal with Kenny Gainwell, and ceding touches and carries as well to his quarterback, Jalen Hurts. It's a 4-headed running monster in Philly, which leads to a very good NFL record. But for fantasy purposes, you're happy if you drafted Miles Sanders in the 8th, 9th rounds of drafts. Like, he's definitely paid off for you. He's been massive. But right now, for this particular week, it's hard to rank him any higher than where I have him there. At 22, Dameon Pierce, and he's been a problem. Not him so much as the team. They can't block. However, sometimes the cure to all that ails you is playing the Cleveland Browns. Now, this is two defense that we want to play running backs against. So, like, Dameon Pierce averaging 13.6 fantasy points per game, but the last 2 games, 4.6 and 3.7. in games where they got absolutely throttled. They could get throttled in this game as well, because they're going to struggle to stop everything that Cleveland brings out there. But if they can get out to and score a touchdown in the first quarter, let's say, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Dameon Pierce could end up having a big game against a team that cannot stop explosive running backs, and Dameon Pierce is exactly that. At number 23, Cordarrelle Patterson had a touchdown broken up on the pass last week. They've utilized him more in the passing game the last 2 weeks. He had not seen more than one target in any game since week 1, where he saw 5. In week 12, he saw 5. In week 11, he saw 2. So hopefully this Falcons offense is going to throw the ball more to Patterson. It's basically correlated directly with the loss of Kyle Pitts. So they're throwing the ball the same amount, but now those short passes, instead of going towards Pitts, are going towards Cordarrelle. They're scheming him more into the play here. He's not going to get you 20 opportunities. He is going to be the guy once they get into any goal-to-go situations against this Pittsburgh defense, which is resurgent. It has looked better in the previous 2-3 games than it had in the 4-8 weeks before that. So very proud defense, but Atlanta playing at home in this spot. Cordarrelle is going to be the heaviest touch guy on the Atlanta Falcons and the best big play threat that they have. Rounding us out at the running back 24, another player from that high scoring environment, and that's going to be DeAndre Swift. I do not like the way that the Lions, I'm going to come out and say this first and foremost. The way that the Lions are utilizing DeAndre Swift since he came back from injury it sucks. And look, I'm not in the building, so I don't know. Maybe he's still hurt, but if he's hurt, you're not winning anything. Shut him down. You have other guys that can play that role. Like, why are you risking further injury if he's injured, right? So there's always two answers to anything, right? So DeAndre Swift came back. Maybe he came back too early. If he came back too early and is still dealing with the shoulder and the ankle injuries that he was dealing with earlier in the season, and you're just like holding his reps down, 13 opportunities in week 12, 8 opportunities in week 11, 12 opportunities in week 10, 6 opportunities, 10 opportunities the 2 weeks prior to that. You can find a guy to fill that role. You don't need it to be DeAndre Swift. He also has not broken off a play longer than 20 yards since coming back from injury. Now, before the injury, he had a 50-yard run in week 1, a 50-yard run in week 2, a 25-yard catch in week 1, a 22-yard catch in week 2. This guy has always been a big play waiting to happen. So he's either injured and you're playing him injured and trying to monitor it because you just want him to feel good about it and you like having all your toys on the field, or he's not injured and he's fine and ready to go, and you're just giving the ball to Jamal Williams over DeAndre Swift, who's a way more explosive guy between the 20s. Neither one of those options makes sense. It absolutely sucks. You have to kind of hope for a big play, but he's better than anything else that's on the table, both on skill, opportunity, and game environment. So that's my top 24 for this week. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Look out for another video right there.
He's a legend.